Hey, I'm wearing the shirt I would have worn if I was in Japan because I don't want people to confuse me for somebody from the USA that wears Canadian clothing as a decoy. One guy was doing a prayer in a local room where I was volunteering at a guest house so I could stay for free because of my low budget and expensive society there. And I believe some of his brothers, maybe sister, had gotten either hurt or killed by soldiers from the US. And I didn't go and get my passport to prove, but as the authority of a volunteer staff there for the short time I was in that guest house, I had the right to say that he should probably think of going and doing his prayer, his daily prayer, in the staircase where he was before, because there's a huge surface where he doesn't block the path of anybody related to using the stairs at mid-levels. And that's where he had done it before. And I passed by there and didn't bother him in that building where the guest house was. But now he was in a common room and taking up a lot of room with what he laid out on the floor. But his friend was saying, hey, he's very upset right now. And I said, oh, I can sympathize, but it's important to know that there's a better place to do that. I don't want him to stop his prayer if it helps him, but this is inconvenient to other people, and I'm volunteer here. Now his friend asked me, are you American? That's not a term I use, but I said, no, I'm from Canada, but what difference does it make? Because I have the authority to ask, and I don't want him to stop. I just want him to go where he was before. It's almost like he's looking for confrontation. And he was very frustrated. But this short conversation with his friend, I was not praying at the time, ended with us hugging, because I said, hey, it doesn't make a difference where I'm from, because if you respect me as I'm respecting you, we're just going to be brothers. And so that was nice. But this blog is actually to apologize to the Japanese people. And by the way, the Japanese people have been very nice to, let's say, Caucasian people, related to acts of, let's say, World War II, maybe sometimes too much, with what is still going on, let's say, with US soldiers hurting women in their country. But what I wanted to say is I apologize for something in current affairs, which is a Caucasian-Sensei talking about a recent earthquake. And this older gentleman, I found, did a very good job explaining with a few questions in a short period of time. And I don't want to criticize that, but what I'm curious about is when you look at things like MSN, and I don't even need to read the story, I can tell that MSN is compromised or unscientific, or they don't care how public opinion moves from one type of understanding or worldview to another. For example, if the title is this earthquake was an aftershock from the one from 10 years ago, although the guy gave very good explanation that there is very likely a correlation, but to write a title like this on MSN, and I don't need to read the article where it might say that there's uncertainty, but it looks that way. I don't need to read that. What I need to point out right now, and why I'm apologizing on behalf of this other sensei that is Caucasian, is that MSN and anybody who really teaches journalism or psychology or sociology or business, they know that most people will just read a title and move on. So it is a form of manufacturing consent. It's a form of intellectual laziness. And there is a difference between hypothesis, theory, and fact. So look it up, people. There's a difference between those three things. Now, this older gentleman, the reason I'm apologizing is, let's say he becomes aware of this title in MSN, let's say, or anywhere else, and he's thinking, well, they make it sound like a fact. Now, do you think he's going to write or ask to be invited to just correct? Of course not. Now, he's probably very good at what he does. Most people that focus on one science are fairly good at what they do. They have the passion for it. They have the confidence to be interviewed on TV. It's wonderful. He did a wonderful job. But is he, like most scientists, a compromised scientist? Meaning he hasn't done his own personal development work related to, let's say, his ego. Because his ego might be triggered and become addicted to this, and he might want to be part of other sound bites where his science will be more compromised and where this kind of fluid, vague view of the world will spread. So, for example, if he saw this and he responded to me, I would say, hey, have you maybe thought about not having people think that we've got all the answers with plate tectonic theory? For example, have you asked your peers to see if anybody's started doing research about how, ice melting either on plates or near the boundaries of plates over the last, not decades, but centuries, can have an impact over the long term of the movements, and incorporate this in the complexities of the theory? Have you maybe thought of doing that instead of just saying how wonderful this science is? And it is, it's wonderful. And we're so late. How are we so late with such an important science, geology, and how geology, again, is misdefined by most people? I took one course at university to take a break from the nonsense of my professors of so-called sustainability in a master's degree, and took this first-year geology course. I loved it. And now I've got a book from the library to refresh my knowledge about it, and it's called Geology for Dummies, and I'm only on like the first or second page, but I find the writer of that very objective and awesome. I would love to take an entire bachelor's degree in geology from that guy. So he's awesome. So apologies to the Japanese people. Don't assume that everything's okay still. Don't keep your nuclear power industry the same as it was before. Don't assume that in the long term, not just for the rest of the world, but your people, it would be a bad idea to cancel the Olympics, because it would be a good idea to cancel the Olympics, because there's still a lot of unknowns. And you don't need to make it up to us anymore. You've done pretty good at coming back from a tragedy where you've suffered a lot of losses from innocence from your country that is still probably just a few generations ago still fresh in your minds. So apologies for a potential misleading of science, and let's pursue the science of geology more so that your place in the future will be nicer to visit.